So in the last video I did, which was a layperson's guide to a CRM project, I sort of broke down a CRM project by various stages and sort of pointed out some of the things that can potentially go wrong and things to look out for. So one of the things I didn't cover, or I sort of alluded to right at the end, was how long does a CRM project take and how long do the various stages take. So I thought today I'll try and break that down and go through it step by step and try and put some sort of estimated timelines together. It's really difficult to do because sometimes it's, how long is a piece of string? But I'm going to give it a go, and actually what we're going to do, just to try and give it some context, is just sort of almost give an example. So, well, we're going to do a mid-sized project, and let's call that sort of 50 users of moderate complexity. So there's probably a data migration from the old system to the new, and let's say there's a couple of integrations, maybe to a website, maybe to the finance system. So that's to give you context. Now let's sort of break down the project. So what are the areas we discussed last time? First of all, that's the fuzzy front end, which is that bit from sort of initial realization to sort of commitment to go ahead with the project. Again, this is virtually impossible. This genuinely is how long a piece of string. Now, there can be many, many years that people go through that process. But let's have our project start at requirements definition. As we said last week, requirements definition is a lot more than just having a list of functional requirements. It's very much around defining what you're trying to achieve, what are the processes that the system will support, and how will it support them. That's the core around requirements definition. And as such, there's quite a lot to that. You need to do your analysis. There's some degree of market research. There's to document, there's a process of documenting it all, and people have to sort of review and sign that off internally. It's quite important everybody buys into the same vision, and also that helps make sure that you haven't missed anything. So I'd say in our context of our 50 user system, let's allow a couple of months for a requirements definition. Then that would feed into what we talked about, procurement. Now procurement's difficult because some organisations have very, very mandated processes that they have to go through, and they can be quite lengthy and can be quite extended. And as we touched on last time, contract negotiations, if you need to get into that can take a seriously long time. So let's imagine in our world it's a reasonably flexible approach to procurement. There's certainly work to be done in terms of identifying potential technologies, identifying potential implementation partners, sending information out, inviting people to put together quotes and proposals, reviewing those, perhaps shortlist demonstrations, negotiating contractual terms and pricing, etc. So again, probably minimally about 2 months for that sort of level of activity. So we're sort of 4 months in. Now, we've gone through procurement, so we can kick off the project. As we touched on last week, the next two stages are really sort of design and development of the system. Now, as I pointed out, you've got this sort of waterfall methodology where it's very heavy on documentation up front and then do development, and agile, which is kind of light on design up front and very iterative. So I'm not going to try and I'm going to actually sort of position this as design and development together. So I would say in our example, probably looking at, I'm going to say 3 to 4 months typically of design and development time. Now that might surprise people because I think a lot of people think that a CRM project is all development, and actually development is a relatively small subsection of it. Now, once we've got development completed, we're into testing. As we said in the layperson's guide video that I did last week, testing can take a very long time if the quality of what's delivered by the implementer is poor. But let's assume in our example we've got high quality delivery from the implementer. So in that particular case, maybe we can just get away with and squeeze that into a month. So we're now sort of 4 months, 7, 8 months in. That's 8 months pretty much from requirements to something approaching go live. I guess next steps would typically be training. Now, if we've got 50 users and we're going to do face-to-face training, we might be looking at 6 or 7 different courses that we might be running. So obviously that's going to take a while to run through. Now that can be done almost alongside training sometimes, alongside testing sometimes. So we can perhaps add a week or so onto things, but training shouldn't sort of hold things up unduly. Now, once we go live and let's say we're at 8 and a bit months in our example, then we're into the user adoption elements. Now, user adoption, I'd say, as I alluded to before, it really does catch people out. If people are new to systems and adopting systems, that can take quite a long time. So, and it will involve a lot of resource. I'd say minimally, just monitoring after go live and making sure that user adoption is happening, minimally 3 to 4 months on top of what we've done already. Now that never goes away. There's always going to be some degree of adoption because you're probably going to be rolling out new capabilities. You've probably got new people joining the organisation. So that's always something you need to keep an eye on. But let's say we're now transitioning to business as usual. Now, business as usual is really going to last the life of the system, hopefully. Now, in my mind, we shouldn't really be implementing a system that's going to last less than 10 years. That should be the sort of target. So, we've got all the sort of business as usual commitments of sort of administration, ongoing time, ongoing change and development and refining and meeting new requirements and evolving. That's going to be present for the life of the system. And as we touched on last time, CRM systems are sensitive flowers and they have to be very carefully cultivated over time. So I think in our example, we're sort of 8 and a bit months from sort of requirements to go live. Then you've got that sort of 4 months of user adoption, hand-holding. So, you're getting on for a year of very active involvement in the project before moving on to the business as usual. Now, I wouldn't say that's the fastest it can be done. I've known situations where people have been really, really focused on getting a system in fast and they're able to do it substantially faster than I've outlined. But I also think that's what I've given is probably on the more optimistic side of reality. So the tendency is that people get, obviously the project team have got day jobs by and large, and people get distracted by other work commitments. And this is all predicated on everything going smoothly. If we didn't do the requirements very well, we get a load of additional requirements crop up as we're implementing what's called scope creep. That's going to delay things. If we've picked a low quality vendor, that's going to delay things. If the quality what's delivered into user acceptance testing is poor, that's going to create a huge additional amount of test time. So these are kind of almost, they're not quite best case, but they're approaching best case. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful and gives you some flavour for how long a CRM project typically takes and what are the areas that take the most time. Anyway, thank you very much.